Hi everyone, this is Pam Price with PamTech Coding, and I am going to start a series of videos on problem solving. If you are looking to get better at problem solving and coding, then this is the channel for you. We are going to start with a really simple problem. Let's say that what I want you to do is create a function that receives a number and it returns either the word even or odd based on what the number is. So you can't just look at that and stare at it and somehow figure out how to code it. You have to actually start digging in and understand the steps of the problem. It is not syntax of a language that is difficult. It is coming up with the steps to solve the problem. So one way to get started, if you're a little stuck, is to think about creating some test cases, because you will need this. Once you actually write your program, you will need test cases to test it out. You will need some inputs and you will need to know what the answer is supposed to be. So this one is pretty simple, but there's still some very important concepts that we need to get out of it. If I were to tell you the number is 50, what do we want the output to be? The output should be the word even, okay? If I were to tell you the number is 17, what do we want the output to be? The output should be the word odd. Okay, well, what's going on in my brain to decide whether these numbers are even or odd? So that's where you have to ask yourself, what is the definition of an even number, right? And look, when you come up with questions like this, and if you are really not sure about the answer, then you can Google it, right? As a matter of fact, let me actually just do that, right? What is an even number? So any number that can be exactly divided by 2. And the word exactly is a very important part of that definition, right? Must be exactly divided by 2. Okay, what does that mean? So it means that if I divide it by 2, there is no remainder, right? Let's look at our examples over here. If I were to take the number 50 and divide it by 2, old time division, right? This goes 2 times, we get 4. 2 and a 10 goes 5 times, we get 10. There is 0 remainder, right? If I take the number 17 and divide it by 2, what do I get? 8 times 2 is 16. This is the remainder. There's a remainder of 1, right? A 0 remainder means even. A 1 remainder means odd. Okay, so the next step is I need to figure out, how do I calculate the remainder, right? But even before we think about that, let's sort of outline. We can actually outline the steps to the problem right now. So I've got something over here. I'm going to create a function. I'm going to call it even or odd. It takes a number as an input, right? I'm going to just do something. I'm going to say is, just so we know where our input is, right? Is num even or odd, right? That's what we're trying to figure out. Let's write our function call, even or odd, and let's try the number 50. All right, so this is going to console log something, right? Let's go take a look and see. Okay, right? So I know that this number 50 is getting passed into this parameter, and that's what I'm supposed to be testing, right? So I'm trying to determine if num is even or odd. So we said one of the steps is I need to calculate the remainder when divided by 2. All right, maybe I don't know how to do that yet, but that is a step that I need to do. Once I know that a remainder of 0 means even, a remainder of 1 means odd. Okay, so I kind of have a little bit of a direction. So we need to figure out how to calculate this remainder. And this is where you need to actually know a little bit about the syntax of the language that you're going to use. And we're going to use JavaScript. And it turns out there is an operator that you may or may not be really familiar with called the modulus operator. And most programming languages have this. It can be a little confusing at first because the operator itself is the percent sign, but it doesn't mean percent. It means tell me the remainder, okay? It says here the division of two integers produces a quotient and a remainder, and modulus gives you the remainder, right? So in our example over here, 25 here is the quotient and 0 is the remainder. And here 8 is the quotient and 1 is the remainder. So we need to understand how this works. And I could go over here to the try it and see what's going on. But what you can also do, I'm going to just get a blank window here and go to inspect. When you're just trying to kind of understand JavaScript a little bit, you can come over here and play in the console here. So if I do 50 modulus operator 2, do you see what I get as an answer is 0. If I do 17 modulus operator 2, the answer I get is 1, right? If I do 99 mod 2, I get 1. If I do 10 mod 2, I get 0. So it looks like we kind of understand how the mod operator works. So let's try this. So I need to calculate the remainder. Usually when you need to calculate something, you need to save it somewhere. So I'm going to create a variable called rem for remainder, and it is going to be equal to num mod 2. I need to make sure that this works, because if this step doesn't work, the rest of my algorithm is not going to work, right? So I'm going to look at my remainder, and I should call like 2 test cases. I need to test it with an even number and with an odd number. All right, let's go back over here to where this is running. I'm going to just clear it so we see. So when I pass it 50, the remainder is 0. When I passed it 17, the remainder is 1. So that works. And that's really important, because let me actually mess up for a second. Suppose I'm confused and I just think I need to use the division operator in order to do this, right? Well, that's not what I'm expecting for a remainder. I'm not expecting it to be 25. I'm not expecting the remainder to be 8.5, right? That's why you have to have test cases, and you have to know what you are expecting, okay? So that you can troubleshoot when your intermediate steps are not right, because everything in programming has dependencies. The rest of my plan here is dependent on me knowing how to properly calculate the remainder. So you have to work on this step and test and stay stuck on this step until you get it right. That's what console log is allowing me to verify it. Okay, now that I know I have the remainder, then what do I need to do? I need to decide whether the answer is even or odd. So anytime I have to think about making a decision, what should we use? We need to use an if statement, and we need to test this remainder, that's why we had to store it in a variable. If it's equal to 0, and I'm making a mistake on purpose here to again show you guys why testing is important. So if it's 0, then I'm going to actually create a variable for my answer. Let answer equal, it's just going to be an empty string. So if remainder is equal to 0, I'm going to say answer is even. I want the word even, right? Else, I'm going to say answer is odd. And now I need to return the answer. Now that I am returning something from this function, when I call it, if I want to, well, let me do it without to show you first what the problem is. So here's where it's working, where it's running. And where's my answer? I don't see it. Well, we didn't console log it anywhere, right? We could have console logged it here, but I want the function to actually return the answer. So if it's returning it, then I need to console log. And how about I do it this way? I'm going to say 50 is, and then we can call this function and get the answer. Here I'm going to say 17 is, and I'm just, we can do a plus or we could do a comma there. Remember, plus is concatenation. Let me actually just put a comma here to make it a little easy for you to see. Okay, and I'm missing my closing parentheses there. There we go. All right, and this is not going to work. Remember, so it's nice that I have this console log in here, so I'm verifying what number am I testing. And when it's 50, I'm getting 50 is odd. And if it's 17, I'm getting 17 is odd. What's the problem? Let's go back and double check what our remainder is. This is when you have to go in and you have to dig in to figure out what is wrong. Okay, so again, running this, is 50 even or odd? The remainder is 0. 17, the remainder is 1. Why is my if statement not working? Right? Hopefully you guys already caught my problem. The equal sign, the single equal sign, this is, I'll put it in the comments here. Equal is the assignment operator used to assign a value to a variable. That's not what we want to do. We want the equality operator. All right, so again, this is where you have to know the syntax of your language. Double equal is the equality operator. Right? And just so you know, like, well, what was going on? Why was it giving me some result? Well, what was actually happening here is that no matter what remainder was calculated here, this actually reset the value to 0, and 0 is considered false, and that's why it was actually processing the else statement, no matter what the remainder was. Okay, or the remainder was 0 and it was processing that. So if we change this to double equal, is 50 even or odd? The remainder is 0. Look, I get 50 is even. 17, the remainder is 1. I get 17 is odd. So my function is now working, right? But do you see all this green, all these comments in here? That's the important part of problem solving, and that is the hard part, is thinking up what the steps are, okay? Now, once you understand this, then sometimes you can figure out an easier way to code it. And so I'm going to give you a challenge. You can pause the video and see if you can do it. And then if you just continue to hit play, I'll show you. But there is a shortcut syntax for writing an if statement. It's called the ternary operator. All right, let's go over that. And I want to challenge you to rewrite this using the ternary operator. Let me actually get this to come up. Let's try here. All right, let's see where it is. Here we go. So this is a shortcut way of writing an if statement. You have a condition. Here's the question mark. This is like asking this question. So here, if z is less than 18, then the answer is x. Otherwise, the answer is y. So I want you to look at this. I could actually code this whole thing with one line. And I want you to think about how to do that. Why don't you pause for the video and let's see if you can do it. And actually the first step can be, let's just rewrite this if else using this ternary syntax, right? So, all right. So we're going to do this in two parts. First, let's just rewrite this. Okay, how does that syntax go? I have my condition, which is rem equal to 0, question mark. And there's going to be an answer of even. Otherwise, there's going to be an answer of odd. Now, this is not really a complete statement yet because I need that's what needs to be returned, either the even or the odd, right? That's what answer is. So actually, I'm going to take this and put it in my return here. Right? You can do work and calculations in a return. So we have our statement here that calculates the remainder, and then if it's 0, we return even, otherwise we return odd. Let's make sure that works, and then we're going to consolidate this just one more step. Right? So again, 50 is even, 17 is odd, so it seems to be working. Let me actually show you one other thing. Suppose you reverse your even and odd. You're just rushing and you put them in the wrong order. Well, that's again why your test cases are important. It's telling me 50 is odd. It's telling me 17 is even. That's also why it's important that I have a test case that covers both situations, because just based on the fact that they are reversed here, pretty much tells me that I have the words reversed here, right? Although, I could do it this way. Instead of checking for 0, I could check for 1, right? A remainder of 1 means odd. A remainder, if it's not 1, it is even, right? So look, there's more than one way to do this correctly. So I'm going to actually leave it that way, all right? But if I want to really make it just one line, then the problem is here, right now, I still need the statement that calculates what remainder is. But remember, remainder has been created to represent that. So I can put num mod 2 there. I'm going to comment out all the rest of this. And we now have a one-line answer. And here's how we need to process reading this. So this whole expression is what I'm returning. So we need to evaluate what this expression is, right? Let's say that the value of num is 5. 5 mod 2 is what gets calculated first. 5 mod 2 is 1. So this is 1. Is 1 equal to 1? Yes. The answer is going to be odd. If I do 4, 4 mod 2 is going to be 0. This is going to be checking, is 0 equal to 1? The answer is no or false, and that's why we get even, right? So 50 is even, 17 is odd, right? But I want to take us back to, what did we figure out? We had to figure out what's the definition of an even number. We had to learn that the modulus operator gives you the remainder. And then we had to figure out our steps, that the steps to solve the problem were calculate the remainder and then decide whether the answer is even or odd. I'm going to add on to this, based on the remainder. All right? So I'm going to give you a couple of other challenges here. This function, as it's written, returns an answer of even or odd. How about, I want you to think about writing a function called is even that returns true if the number is even, returns false if the number is odd. So that's just another way to do it, and think about how to test it. If you wanted to then print out the words even or odd, you'd have to figure that out. So I'm just going to leave you guys with that as a little challenge problem. You can leave comments on this video if you have some challenges in doing that. So I hope that gives you some idea of why it is important to take the time to, away from your keyboard, to think about how to solve the problem, to come up with the steps, to even sort of test your steps out before you actually start coding. That is a really, really important part of the process, and the comments are a very critical, important part of the process, especially as a new learner. All right, I'll be doing more of these videos, and please leave me comments about problems that you would like me to do videos on. If you enjoyed the video, please like. If you haven't subscribed, I appreciate your support. And until the next time, I want you to stay curious, keep coding, and keep learning. Bye.